Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about the TriKingdom Dungeons game. My name is Ahmad Harrant, and let's proceed. The player hook of the game is you go on adventures through dark dungeons. You fight fantasy-like creatures like golems, liches, dragons, monsters, and more. And in this game, you build decks to become the strongest adventurer. In the story, you're an adventurer going on a quest. You're a half mage and half ranger going on a bounty missions and a mission to gain rewards just for completions. And a mission go to mission to mission, facing many evils. The genre the genre of the game is fantasy tactical role playing games which involve strategy, and will be using a card based system and is rated for E10 plus for everyone. And the target audience is the ages from 14 to 21, those who love fantasy, games, and adventure. The camera will be in 3D isometric view, like the Tomb Raider Go and Diablo, where you can play from area view from the top. So and the game will be in third person. The core mechanics of the game is they use grid movement system, where the player moves, use action points, and the enemy moves while using timer based. The enemy timer system will be used in turn and timer, and it'll describe when the enemies can attack. As for the battle system, they use the character card abilities and customizations. When you use basic attacks, special when apply special attacks and magic attacks, and the effects includes healing and also increased movement. And if after defeating all your enemies, you'll obtain reward cards. The gameplay loop. This is the gameplay loop. You start where you start, and the gameplay with player choice. Either they either want to go for action where they can attack and use magics, using the card effects, or healing and defeating the enemies. And the players can also move where they can move and attack special. And the basic of the game is just attack and use special and attacks using specials in order to progress. The game goals of the game is one of the main goals is fight through the dungeons and meet the boss at the end where you have to defeat the boss. The sub goals is follow the beat of just to follow the beat of the game, build a better deck of card abilities, and the moment to moment, all you have to do is defeat the enemies, avoid getting damages, and move from floor to floor. The feedback, as for the visuals, they'll be represent magic particles where the spells are cast, and the arrows shot when the ranged attacks are used, particles for fireball spells, the nuclear explosion for nuke spell, and lightning slash from swords. And as for the audio, we're using a lightning slash of swords and daggers, raging fires from magic spells, the drum beats from enemies' movements, and wind swoosh from arrows, and nuclear explosion bomb from the nuke spell. As for the hectic, where the players can experience the vibration from the mobile phones or smartphones, where the player takes damage when player hits the enemies, and light vibration feedback for menu selection. The audience breakdown are mostly the fans are fans of deck building games, strategy / role playing games, and for those who are aged from 14 to 21, from high school to college, and those who love Dungeons and Dragons, and those who likely to play games on phones during their free time. The platform and controls. So the platform I chose is mobile, is an Android, and where they can tap and swipe controls, and will be in landscape based screen, and swipe on cards to play. As for type and swipe controls, you can swipe on cards to swipe them to play them, and swipe on players to move, and tap on the enemies to select a target. Questions. All right, to answer your questions, the team will be dark. It'll be in dark fantasy with fantasy characters such as Golem, orcs, wizards, knights, and so on. It's mostly dungeons quests. As for the game mood is for those who feel hectic at times. Good in strategy, which helps player to keep themselves in control, and for those who have lots of happening at once. Where they have lots in their minds. Like from work or school or homework, and so on. Okay, the cards. So the player have 3 types of cards: the melee attacks, long range attacks, and magics. The cards are consisting of the magic abilities consisting of fire, whip, and teleports, and the melee attacks, which is a sword, and long range attacks, which is a bow and arrow. So the character breakdowns. As for the character breakdowns, the card types is the ranger, where the ranger use strong melee abilities and range abilities and magic abilities. And as for the enemies, the swordsman can only attacks in close range. Crossbowman can attack at close range, but can attack on long range, just like the bow and arrow. And Sentinel, when they move 3 ticks and a slower attacks, and a Golem, that does not move, changes between 360 degrees and straight range attacks. As for the reward cards, this is where the player has to defeat all the enemies in order to gain a reward cards. So the reward cards consists of flurry melee attacks, which damages 6 points, so damages 6 of the health of the enemies. Triple long range attacks, which also damages 6 the health of the enemies, and a nuclear bomb, which can wipe out the enemies instantly. And the reward cards presets, and the rewards cards presets will only appear after you're defeating all the enemies. And the reward cards presets will appear where you can upgrade your magic and attack abilities, but the player can only pick only one reward card, and to gain the reward cards, you have to defeat the enemies. So if the player lost or escaped, you will gain nothing, but it will just proceed. And if you escape, it'll just proceed to the next level without any rewards. All right. As for the swordsman's enemies has a turn every 3 ticks. It can move, attack up to 4 times in a turn. It must be next to the player to attack, so they have to be in close range. And the swordsman only has the half of the health of the player, and he can be moved by a player. Crossbowman takes every action every 2 ticks. Must be 1 space away from player to attack. Means they can attack from long range. He can move or attack up to 4 times a turn. Has half the health of the player. He can be moved by the player. And as for the Sentinels, has turn every 4 ticks. Can attack up to 2 times a turn or not at all. It moves 1 space every other turn. Has the same health as a player, but it can be moved by player. The first boss, Golem. Alright, at this time, the boss can move, but only in limited spaces. It is big in size, has 2 attacks, has a 360 degrees melee attack. It can perform a huge spin attack, and it can attack on all directions. And also, it can also attack long range, which can only attack straight. It can only attack straight, which is attack vertically or horizontally, depending on the directions. The user interface is the main UI. You can see the three cards, the front and the deck, and the deck of cards, where the deck of cards will be shuffled automatically by the computer. And there's a health, and also there's a health on the top. And the and also in main UI, once the cards are selected, you can see that the cards rise up. Yeah, just to show that the card's been selected. And if the cards are selected, they'll just remain they'll just remain in that order. And these are the reward cards presets UI will indicates the melee damage up to 6, nuclear bomb, instant kill, and long range attacks. Okay, and as you can see, one of the orders is raised up. This where you can select all your upgrade magic or attack abilities. And as full mechanics breakdown, enemies can attack per turn or intervals, and enemies move on set turn intervals. During player choice, you can move or use action cards. Player can either escape the level or defeat enemies to progress, which I highly recommend that you defeat all the enemies in order to obtain the reward cards. The basic attacks do 2 damages, but special mostly 3 damages. Defeating all enemies reward card, and the player has the defeating all enemies. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Defeating all enemies, the players will gain reward cards with upgrades. Okay, so the fire will upgrade to nuclear bomb, and the short range attack like a sword will gain a flurry melee, and the long range attacks, which is a bow and arrow, can do a triple long range. The player has 20 health, whereas the enemies have 10 health, whereas the boss has 30 health. So be mindful. These are the full design breakdown. There are 3 levels, including the boss. So the first level is introduced mechanics, is a straightforward path. So the path will be smaller and wider, and it'll be easier. It's just to get the audience to understand the concept of the game and the objective of the game. Okay, and by the time they get to level 2, that's where the path will become narrower and more difficult to escape. And then but the players it won't be as narrow or tighter as it won't be as narrow and tighter as you can expect it. And the players will might likely more to win. Level 3 is when they ramp up the difficulty with complicated paths, narrower paths, tighter, and it's going to be way more difficult for the players to escape. The boss fight, well, the path is going to be slightly wider and not as tight as the last 3 levels. Is to get the players a chance in understanding how to use the ultimate test of skill and strategy. But be mindful, the boss is bigger, and it can attack on all directions. So the player has to find a barrier which it can hide himself from the enemies. The aesthetics will be the dungeons will be in dark, dimly lit. The characters will be simple, like the low poly figurines, and the art of the card will be similar to Alfonso Mucha, Rider Waite Tarot. Do like tarot cards, like the tarot cards, as you can see all the design. So the development tools, I'll be using Unreal Engine, Android Studio, Visual Studio for programming, Maya, Substance Suite, Discord for meetings and discussions. Oh, and Substance Suite for texturing. For texturings and skinning, and Maya for modeling, 3D modeling. I was thinking of using ZBrush as well, and Google Office Suite, where we can do the writing, do the write up, and Reasons and BFXR. The music mechanics. Well, this is our the this is pretty much from the app called the TR Bob, where you can make all kinds of drum sound. Well, drum moves on their own timers using the drum beats. When the enemies and player move, they make a sound. Each enemy type makes a different sound and stops when defeated. The scatter timings creates a beat. Thank you. That'll be all. Laters.